Okay, so the recording has started. Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you for coming today to today's talk titled My Journey from an Engineer to a Product Manager by Uday Kumar from Capital One. So as a part of his talk, he'll share on his non-linear career journey and lessons learned. And he will also share on why now is a good time to be a software product manager. So a little bit more about Uday. So Uday is a seasoned product leader with a broad expertise in leading and growing digital product teams. So he's a firm believer that amazing products are a result of listening to, experimenting with, learning from, and empowering teams, partners, and customers. Uday is a strong advocate for diversity, inclusion, and also in authenticity. So his professional experience spans a diverse set of organizations from consulting, Fortune 500, nonprofits, and startups in different sectors, including fintech and education tech. So Uday also volunteers as a part of the GDE, Google Developer Experts program, as an expert in the payments category. So he enjoys public speaking, blogging, and mentoring on things about product, innovation, and startups. So before I pass this on to Uday, if you have any questions during the talk, just drop them in the Q&A box on the site there. We've already enabled it, so you're able to access it anytime. And we'll get to them after the talk. So Uday, are you ready?
Yes, Ying, thank you. I'm ready.
All right, so I'll leave you to it then.
All right, thanks, Ying, for that nice introduction, and welcome everybody. Once again, Uday Kumar over here. I'm in the U.S. East Coast, more specifically out of the northern Virginia part, which is right outside Washington, D.C., and happy to be here. Although this presentation is primarily for the audience in Brunei. I know it's really early morning in Brunei. It's probably 7 a.m. or a little after 7 a.m. Saturday morning. And this session is being recorded, but I see at least one person from US mainland, so welcome. So let me switch over to my presentation and go to presentation mode up here. The title of the presentation, as you see, Engineering from Product Manager, and that gives you a hint in terms of where I started and where I am right now. And I'm going to be focusing on just walking you through that journey in terms of what are the opportunities that came my way, some of the decisions I made, some of the decisions that were forced on me, and of course the choices I made, and then how my journey pivoted from one track to another, and hopefully that'll resonate with some of you, and maybe inspire you to explore product management as a career destination, if this piques your interest. But first of all, I want to start by thanking the Google Developers Experts program. Ying referred to that. So thanks to this program, it's a volunteer program that Google runs that identifies experts like myself in different walks of life, and connects people like me with different developer communities and product communities across the world, where I'm able to share my experience and knowledge with those communities, mentor them at times, inspire them, and more importantly, learn from their experiences. So again, I want to start by just acknowledging and thanking the Experts program for connecting me with GDG Brunei and Ying, and sharing my journey over here. So at a high level, when I think about my professional career thus far, it's about 22 years and change now. I break that up into 3 different phases. Phase 1 is engineering phase, which again started from my undergrad days. I grew up in India, and so undergrad was engineering school in India, and then I'll walk you through that journey. But again, engineering phase was school through management consulting and everything in between. And then there was this transition phase where I was thinking about what future direction I should be looking at. the market and the options were starting to open up. And so I'll talk about that a little bit. And then phase 3 is about the product phase, as I made the transition from engineering to product. And I'll talk about that phase of my career journey, where how I got the breaks, how I built sort of my portfolio, and some of the trial and tribulations over there. So again, 3 phases or 3 chapters in the journey thus far: engineering to transition to product. But as I mentioned, the journey really started back in India. I grew up in India all the way through undergrad, and then in the mid 90s, as I was in my final year of engineering school, had an option in terms of just starting my career in India, choosing grad school in India as opposed to going overseas and pursuing graduate school in the US. And I made that choice of taking that leap of faith, of going from India to the US. Back then, as I mentioned, mid 90s, there wasn't a whole lot of internet or those resources to do your research and homework in terms of what the options are. So you had to essentially go to the embassy or the local consulate in India and look through these binders of schools and their flyers and the programs, and then send letters and such. So it was quite, the experience back then was quite fascinating, quite different, quite time consuming and tedious. But again, that was really the first real choice I made in terms of my professional career, which is choosing to get on a plane. And I landed in New York City, and from there headed to Cleveland, where I started my journey in grad school. So again, let's keep moving. Phase 1 was engineering stuff, and I really think of engineering phase as a time where I was doing stuff. And doing stuff really is, that's what engineering is about, right? You get your hands dirty, your hands on the keyboard if you're in software development, or in a workshop if you're doing hardware engineering, or in a lab. So really, engineering comes in different shapes and forms, but it's really about doing stuff, and that's something that I was passionate about coming out of undergrad. And that phase really was broken into the time I spent in school, and then the time I spent in my early break in my professional career, which was in factories and at clients. And I'll walk you through the journey. So as I mentioned, undergrad was India at an institute which are now called the National Institute of Technologies. And then from there, I came to the States. My first grad school stint was at Case Western Reserve University, which is a private university in Cleveland. I did my graduate school in mechanical engineering, and then also spent some time in the PhD program, but decided that that's something that wasn't for me, and started my professional career. My first break came at US Steel, and that's what you see up here, which was essentially writing software for tracking steel, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Followed by Sherwin-Williams, which was another manufacturing setup, where Sherwin-Williams, if you're not familiar, manufactures paint. So more manufacturing, more process engineering, if you will, and building software to track paint. So going from tracking steel on the shop floor all the way to the warehouse, and then to the retail outlets, to tracking paint. And from there, my breaks, essentially, I got into management consulting. Had a few friends who were getting some breaks in the Big Five, back then called the Big Five consulting firms. Joined PwC in the manufacturing and supply chain practice, followed by Sapient, which opened up for more opportunities. But let's dive deeper into these experiences. So why was school important, and what was the foundation that my school days provided me, both in undergrad and grad school? I think the school engineering experiences in my school days were really important, from providing a strong foundation in terms of math. Again, as we all understand, most of the revolution, the tech revolution, that's been driven over the past 15 odd years, and that continues to be driven in the future, is has a strong foundation and grounding in math, whether it's AI, whether it's data science, whether it's cloud, and you can pick any technology of your choice, and if you start unpacking that, the foundation of that is math. Along with that, my school, undergrad and grad school education also gave me my first experiences in terms of programming. Back then, Fortran and C were really popular, and so I spent quite a bit of my time in honing my skills in that. My master's thesis was in modeling of piezoelectric composites, and most of the work that I did over there was using Fortran and C programming. Also, as I was coming out of grad school, I was getting my first experience with email and with the internet. My first email address that I got was in my grad school, which was pretty interesting. The email experience back then was pretty basic, but again, that was again the early 90s, mid 90s when I got that exposure. Finally, the school experiences, especially grad school, also offered me a chance to do some rigorous collaboration and research with students and professors from different faculties, whether it was material science. I was in the mechanical engineering department, but I was partnering with folks from aerospace engineering, from material science, as well as civil engineering. So there was those were my early experiences in terms of partnering from different from students and faculty from different walks of life, and also presenting my ideas. I got a couple opportunities to present the work that I've done along with my professor. So again, school provided those basic building blocks that gave me the confidence to go seek some professional opportunities. From there, my first break, as I mentioned, was at US Steel. This was in a small town called Lorain, Ohio, which is right outside Cleveland, Ohio, where I went to school. And then my at the steel plant, as you see in the left, it's not just steel engineers and manufacturing engineers, but also software engineers that build a bunch of capabilities to continue to make sure that there's the supply chain keeps moving, and there's adequate transparency and controls in terms of how the product, over here steel, is made and how it moves across the supply chain through the warehouse, through the mill, through the warehouse, and to the consumers and buyers of that product. I also learned that software makes things fast in terms of being able to get information. So as you can imagine, steel plants, they are built on huge properties of land, and for information to be able, for folks to be able to access information in different parts of that supply chain, software makes it easier to be able to access the information, ask questions, and brings that transparency across the supply chain, which is very important to keep things moving in a fast, agile, and secure manner. Of course, also learned that software needs quality, and most of the setups are high-stakes setups where if the software you're writing is not telling the right temperature, or it's giving you the incorrect temperature or the incorrect weight of a certain unit of product, especially steel, that could result in some serious disasters and casualties. So quality is super important. And as I moved from the steel plant to the paint plant, and that's a picture that you see on the right. This is an assembly line where you see cans of paint being filled in the filling line. Over here, I learned that supply chains can be global. You've got paint that's been manufactured in one part of the United States that is then moving to different parts of the US, going to Mexico, Canada, and also being shipped to Europe. So again, software was helping bring that transparency and awareness across these global supply chains. You needed to also ship the software. Back then, internet, we didn't have the cloud, we didn't have sort of these utilities or platforms where you could bundle the software and ship it in real time. So we had to burn disks and either carry them physically to those manufacturing sites or ship them for the local engineers at those manufacturing sites to install them. And of course, we also learned that the folks at the shop floor needed training. So we had to offer training in person, write training manuals, and be available for troubleshooting. So those experiences were important and vital in terms of just learning what goes on a shop floor and how things move and what kind of support engineers need to provide to keep things moving. And at some point, I realized that manufacturing was fun, but it was a lot of hard work. You had to wear these special clothes, hard hats, steel-toed shoes, safety glasses, and it was starting to get not as exciting. And at the same time, management consulting was starting to really pick up with the likes of PwC, Deloitte, Anderson Consulting, and KPMG. So I got my break in PwC as part of their manufacturing supply chain practice. And that's when I said goodbye to jeans and hello to Dockers, because again, in a management consulting setup, you got to dress up as opposed to just being casual in jeans and t-shirts. Over here, I had to have a button-down shirt and Dockers and shoes. There was a bit of change in the attire, but again, the scene changed completely. I had an opportunity. What you see up here is two marquee clients that I work with, two marquee projects that I work with. On the left, I worked on a project for Procter & Gamble, and Iams is an important brand, pet food brand in the Procter & Gamble portfolio. Back then, I spent time helping them along with a large PwC team think through an e-business strategy, how to build a presence on the internet, how to build brands and use the internet and websites, for example, to build brands, and then more go from brand building to commerce, how to enable those kind of experiences on the internet. Content management, I picked up, I learned that content management was a thing. And back then there were products like Interwoven that allowed OEMs to have their product details, organize the product details, and then be able to serve that up real time on the internet portals, whether they were brand portals or commerce portals. And also another important thing was design as being something that was very important part of an experience. So it's not just writing code, which we engineers are good at, but also realizing that in order to build products that are compelling and engaging, engineers have to work with designers or design agencies to think through those experiences and navigation and those kind of aspects. That was PwC as an important client, customer on the right, and that was part of my PwC experience. On the right is an experience I had with when I moved over to Sapient, and this is a customer that I work with called the New York ISO, Independent Service Operator. That is the acronym. And over here, as opposed to a B2C experience, I was starting to get into more of a B2B experience, going from a business to consumer to a business to business experience. And what you see in the visual on the right is really an experience, is a control room of a utility grid where they are keeping, you've got systems and software that helps you keep an eye on the health and hygiene of your grid across, and this one represents Northeast US, across Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, that area. And so we spend time building those capabilities and modernizing that grid management system or platform for this customer. Also, some of the key learnings as part of this experience was getting into agile delivery and getting into global distributed delivery. This was, again, the early 2000s, agile delivery, Scrum, Lean, those kind of principles were starting to pick up and started to get some love from software delivery organizations, as well as global distributed delivery, and especially Southeast Asia as a hub for delivering software at a lower price point, and 24/7 started to become a thing. So I got my experiences in both agile as well as global distributed delivery. As part of the Sapient experience, I spent some time in India, building teams over there and delivering projects for customers, not just in the US, but also in the UK. So again, consulting was an important part of that engineering phase, and I learned a bunch of things over there in terms of design aspects, delivery aspects, and working with teams that was globally distributed. As I was wrapping up or going through those experiences, I was starting to get a little anxious and ambitious in terms of trying things on my own. I figured that I'd learned enough on the software side. I had seen enough of the opportunities and challenges customers and clients had, and I had this itching of trying to start building things on my own. But again, the skill that I was lacking back then was really on the business side. So I had some strong software and engineering skills, but I didn't really have some of the business acumen that was important to go build stuff. And whether it was how to market things, whether it was how to understand customer psychology, or how to build business cases, what was NPV, what is ROI, just things like that. And I felt that I had to complete my portfolio, personal portfolio was incomplete, and I had to go make some investments. And that's when I decided to go back to business school. And this was while I was working. I applied to a few different schools, and I started my B school exec MBA program at Duke. And the key learnings at the B school were really the four things that you see up here, top left. One of the key learnings was why statistics and probability matter. And again, there are many learnings that you can walk away from a good business school program, but the idea that stats and probability were really important in terms of thinking about customers, thinking about opportunities, and thinking about odds of where you should invest, where you shouldn't invest. And now, of course, stats and probability really are the underpinning of AI and data science. But again, those were some key learnings going through some of those courses and learnings through the decision science classes, or the macroeconomics and microeconomics classes was really important and insightful. Also picked up learnings around branding and pricing and why they're important, and how do you differentiate when there's so much competition in anything that you try to do. Those were key learnings in terms of coming out of B school. On the right, some of the more important learning I had was not just from the professors and the courses, but also from my peers. It was a very diverse class of students in terms of the industries that were represented, in terms of the geographies and the professions. There were folks from the health sciences space, there were folks from fintech, there were people from manufacturing, from consulting, there were doctors. And so it was a really interesting mix of students in my cohort, and there was so much learning just happening from listening to their ideas and their experiences. And finally, one of the most important things I learned was that you get what you put in. And a lot of times you'll get asked coming out of B school, why was it important? Why did you have to take so much time out of your life and spend time? And it really comes down to, what do you want out of it? A lot of people just come out and or go through the program because it's fun and they get to meet people, they get to travel. And then there are other people who come out who want to work on their ideas, or they're passionate about certain things and they use that to move the needle on those endeavors and ambitions. So again, really, there's no right or wrong answer over here in terms of deciding whether or not spending time or investing in business school is the right thing for you or not. End of the day, you just need to determine what is it that you were trying to get out of that. Is it purely academic? Is it entrepreneurial? Are you trying to further career, or are you trying to switch careers? And then you can go from there. But again, one of the things I wanted to do was really get into product. And I wanted to build stuff. I wanted to try stuff. But I didn't have any background. I didn't have a portfolio, right? Breaking into product really means that you need to be able to prove or demonstrate to the employer or to the hiring manager that you really have those skills or have those chops in terms of being able to think using a product mindset, or think using a design mindset, or think from a customer first mindset. In order to really build that foundation or build that portfolio, I decided to get into some entrepreneurial sort of endeavors. And the first one I tried my hand at was something called TNL, which is short for Tried and Liked. The basic idea over here was to make it easy for consumers to be able to find reliable recommendations. This was, again, about 10 to 12 years ago. As a consumer, when you think about buying a product, there are a number of different ways you do your homework. At times you just go with a gut feel, but when you're making a big investment, let's say you're looking to buy a washer dryer, or you want to buy a car, or you're looking to buy a home, what have you eventually, or you're looking even to go to a restaurant or travel, you have your usual suspects that either you do get on a search engine, or you go to Yelp, or you go to TripAdvisor, or Trulia. There's a number of different ways, right? But again, oftentimes you're relying on ratings or recommendations that are given by total strangers. You have no idea who these people are, and you rely on that, as opposed to if there was a way to tap into the wisdom of your network, people that you knew, or the friends of your friends. Wouldn't that be more powerful? So that was the basic premise over here, to build a platform which could help you tap into the advice and recommendations of your network. We spent some time on that, building an MVP and raising it. In fact, even raising some money. But 9 months into the journey, I learned a few different things. We had a closed shop, but two important lessons I learned from there. First one was test your hypotheses early and often. As first-time entrepreneurs, me and my partners, we were really anxious and eager to go build stuff, and in the process of that speed, we discounted this important idea that you must test small. You must have a small set of prospects or customers that you're bouncing your ideas off, and you must test your risk, the biggest risk, early. And one of the lessons I'll talk about over here quickly is that back then we had the choice of building our MVP on 3 different platforms. We could go iOS or Android or BlackBerry. And in today's world, if I was to do this today, I would just pick one OS and build on that first. Back then, we got ahead of ourselves and we built on our MVP on all three OSs, which was really dumb if you think about it. But again, we didn't have any prior experience. We didn't have a good advisor, coach, if you will, a mentor. All the things that today I think about I would do very differently, or you would do very differently. But again, those are some of the lessons. Again, and lesson 2 was be very lean with the resources. As I mentioned, we raised some money, but again, we ended up hiring a company to help us write the software on all 3 platforms. So we burned that money real fast, and we're not able to test most of our ideas, and we ran out of finances and time. But again, those are important lessons for me to learn and include as part of my stories and learnings in my portfolio and aspiration to get into product. Very quickly, my second entrepreneurial endeavor was an idea called Stemsible, which was my desire to make it easy for parents to discuss ideas, concerns, and information when it comes to their child's education. And this was primarily the audience, which is in kindergarten to 12th grade. I had, again, made some progress over here. This idea and this endeavor was more grounded, was based on, I tried as much as possible to not repeat the same mistakes from my first endeavor. I was able to find a co-founder, a CTO, as opposed to raising money and on a software development shop. And also, I did this while, so again, on the first lesson, having a partner who is very hands-on with technology is very important. This way, you can bring your product experience and they can bring their tech experience, and a product tech partnership or team is a lot more compelling. You can divide and conquer and execute a lot faster and stay the course. But again, it's hard to keep the engineering or the CTO excited because they're anxious to see results. And but so there's different ways to address that. That was an important lesson over there. A second lesson was important lesson was doing this while I had a day job and I was trying to raise a family. I had 2 young kids. It was really hard work, challenging, but again, I was driven to get this to a point that was a lot farther as opposed to my first idea. But again, in hindsight, lesson learned: have a strong tech partner if you're a product person, or have a strong product partner if you're a tech person. Make sure you have a strong team, and try and do this maybe when you're early in your life, in your career, when maybe you don't have a life partner or maybe you don't have kids. It will allow you a lot more flexibility and leeway to go faster. But again, these 2 experiences were important for me to then position myself and go look for real product opportunities where I could go create stuff for larger, more established entities that were more well funded. And that's when my product phase started. But again, over here, I couldn't really get a real product job, a real product break, because one, product was still picking up or still being accepted as a genuine job classification or profession. And 2, I still didn't have a whole lot of real world experience. So my first few product breaks really came as part of consulting. And I got consulting breaks at a couple of nonprofits. On the left, you see SCORE and NRCA. Those are 2 nonprofits where I got breaks in terms of helping them think through introducing agile and lean approaches and introducing and thinking about design thinking as well as product mindset and customer first. I brought those ideas and they were eager to experiment. and so they brought me on board for short stints. That was helpful for me, again, testing my ideas, but also for those smaller nonprofits to experiment and bring in some early principles, product principles into their ecosystem. I also got a couple of breaks with startups. On the right, Akala, which is a student counseling platform. I spent some time with them and think through what a potential MVP could be, what a go-to-market strategy could be, and then Ziva, which is a platform for doing procurement for large manufacturing institutions. I help them think through some early use cases for AI and automating some of the processes. So all four of these experiences were important in terms of me getting to build my portfolio and make it more compelling to go seek out real full-time product opportunities. Alongside, as I was doing this, I was also starting to make time to attend some of the local meetups and make my presence felt in local tech communities and product communities in terms of attending, building my network, and sharing some ideas, which is very important as a product person. And that's when I also got my break into the Google Developer Experts program, which was about 5 years ago. I joined that program because I really genuinely believe that sharing my ideas and building that network could be done together, and contributing to these communities by sharing my failures and my life experiences would be compelling, and people would be keen to listen to those things. And finally, I started getting into some real product roles. My first real product break came with a nonprofit called College Board. And if you've heard of products like AP and SAT, those are College Board products. And that's when I joined there as a senior director of the AP program. A few key things that I learned over there were the importance of building internal networks. As a product person, it's very important to build that network with your partners, with your customers, with your stakeholders, in terms of getting to know them getting to know you, and building the rapport, because that is essentially what I've learned helps you move things along, helps you influence strategies and your agenda. Also learn the importance of mission versus margins. As important profits and bottom line and top line are as a product person, being passionate about and being aligned to a mission, whether it's improving student outcomes or whether it's making, in my current role as Capital One, making banking easier for consumers. Those missions can really be empowering and can help you channel your energy and ideas in a more compelling way, where you can be building good products, which is not just good for the community, but also good for the bottom line. I also learned that nonprofits are slow. There's a lot of bureaucracy. There's a lot of internal sort of friction and inertia that slows things down. And that was an important experience. But again, I learned that there's some of that downside that comes with working those setups. I got a break next in a startup called Flat World, where the flavor was totally opposite. Things were moving fast. The ideas were big, bold, and ambitious. Couple of things that I learned over there that was as a product person were that you have to really protect your teams. And what I mean by that is, in a small setup like a startup, there's going to be a lot of asks from your CEOs, from your business development teams, from your sales teams, and there'll always be a push to change your commitments, change your agenda, change your priorities. And as a product person, I had to work really hard to protect the commitments I'd made, because if not, I'd just be switching priorities, and that I would never be able to deliver anything. My teams would never be able to deliver anything. So as a product person, another key learning coming out of the startup world was you have to really guard your teams and do all the blocking and tackling. And at times, you'll be appreciated for that, but at times you'll get a lot of hate for that. But again, that's what good product managers do, where they're able to influence those kind of demands and keep things cordial and moving along. Finally, another important thing that I picked up was, which I wish somebody had told me early in my career, is always pick a boss, not a company. End of the day, the most time you will spend in a setup is with your manager, with your teams. Make sure you get to be introduced to them, get to spend some time with your boss. It's not just them interviewing you, but you should interview them. Get to meet maybe a tech team if it's possible before you make a commitment and get on board with any companies, big or large, because that is where you'll be spending most of your time. And now, finally, where I am today, which is Capital One. And call me, you might think I'm a bit biased, but again, I believe this is the best fintech institution out there in Northern America, if not the world. You can look across the spectrum and compare Capital One with other banks, whether it's Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Amex, you name it, and you pick any dimension, whether it's the people, the leadership, the culture, the technology stack, the growth opportunities. Capital One has just stood out in terms of in any and every dimension. I've been here, I'm coming up on 2 years over here. And one interesting story I'd like to share quickly is that the Capital One break really came because of the time I spent volunteering as part of the Google Developer Expert Program. I was at a meetup about 3 years ago, connected with a director of Capital One, a director of technology at Capital One. I realized that we were practically neighbors. We grabbed coffee and then grabbed beers, and this individual asked me if I would consider Capital One as a career, because Capital One was looking to build their product team. And so again, it's just a testimony to the power of network, the power of giving back, and the power of being out there in community where you never know where your next opportunity will come. So I'm a big believer in giving back, paying forward, putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, but making those connections, and then waiting for those opportunities to come your way. A few different things that I've learned in my 2 years in Capital One as a product person. And the first one is make it easy. These three words, although seem simple, but this really underscores your mission, our mission as product people. Anything we do for our customers, anything we ship, anything we deploy, anything we launch, anything we increment on, the single focus should be, the goal should be, am I making it easy for my customer, right? Because if you're not doing that, you're better off not doing it at all. In other words, build stuff that is easy to understand, use, and extend. Whether you're working on product intents, whether you're working on platform intents, whether you're Amazon building cloud products, EC2, S3, you name it, or whether you're building Airbnb experiences or DoorDash or Netflix experiences, your single goal should be to make it easy for your customer to be able to understand what they are working with, what they're using, and make their life easier. Number two, build strong partnerships. I think I've touched on this a few different times in my presentation thus far, but building those genuine, authentic connections with your teams, with your tech partners, with your platform partners, with your internal customers, with your external customers, building those partnerships will go a long way in making things easier to move the intents along, move your commitments along, greasing the wheels. I cannot stress enough where in terms of the amount of time I spend in a given day, in a given week, reaching out, introducing myself, following up, and in good times and bad times with a variety of my partners within Capital One, and continue to invest in those relationships and making sure that we are building, or I'm proposing, win-win partnerships. And this has paid dividends in my in moving my agenda, in my customers' agenda thus far at Capital One. So again, please continue to be mindful of building those partnerships. Number 3, less is more. The fewer things you commit to, the more you can work on, the more your teams can work on, the more you can ship. This is such a basic, fundamental concept that a lot of people just struggle to understand and internalize. In this mad rush or this bias to say yes to everybody, we get caught up in just taking on more. Before you know it, your plate is full, overflowing, and you stretch yourself thin, you stretch your team thin, and your work products are, the timelines are slipping, your commitments, you're missing your commitments, equality is dropping. So again, do yourself a favor, do your teams, do your company a favor, do fewer things. Whether it's your entrepreneurial endeavor, whether it's in a small startup, whether you're in a big company, make fewer commitments so that you can focus more, you can focus your teams more and ship more. Finally, be yourself and don't try being somebody else. Again, it's always good to learn from others, emulate others, have strong role models and people that you can look up to. But again, bring your style, bring your energy, bring your flavor, because that is something that is organic to you, that will come naturally. You don't have to fake it, and people in the long run will appreciate that. So again, be authentic. Also support authenticity amongst your team, encourage that, celebrate that, and that'll pay dividends in the long run. So what has my journey taught me? And this slide essentially summarizes those 3 things. Every individual's path is different, and especially in my case, as you saw, it's very nonlinear. Went from engineering to start as an engineer, went to product. But again, product, you can land in product in multiple different ways. You can start. I've seen people who started as designers land in product, who started as statisticians land in product, who started as teachers land in product. And along that path, there'll be multiple pivot moments and decision points. Be open to those. Take some chances. And you never know where you end up, but be bold in those choices. Always, number 2, people are important. They make a difference. As I mentioned, I'm in Capital One because I put myself in communities out there. I met 7 people, and they made a difference. And people have always, your network, your relationships will always come back and pay you back, 5-fold, 10-fold. So continue to invest in that. But again, don't wait for people to do stuff for you. Do stuff for other people. Pay it forward. And finally, product management. There's no degree program. There's no college program in product management. Product management is typically not your first job. You'll have to make some investments early in other profession before you get into product. but the bottom line is very rewarding. I can enjoy it every day is a challenge. I look forward to the challenges, whether it's tech challenges, process challenges, people challenges. But again, it's something that has been. I haven't regretted that decision. I've been doing product for the past 10 years, and I look forward to doing it for the next 10. So I certainly hope that if you are not in that career, but you're considering it, I would encourage you to continue to explore that and continue building that portfolio. I want to start wrapping up by a couple of things. This quote from Steve Jobs is really one of my favorites. Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow know what you truly want to become. I try to remind myself of this quote as much as possible and try to follow my gut, my intuition. And so far, it's been paying dividends. I've mostly landed on the right side of things as opposed to landing on the wrong side or landing in trouble. But again, the more chances you take, the better your intuition gets, the better your choices get. And so continue to take those chances. Here's my contact details if you'd like to stay in touch. My email, my LinkedIn, and I'm an expert in the Google Developer Program. I'm an expert in the payments category. So if there's anything, any interest you have or questions you have on that topic, I'm always happy to have a conversation. But the best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. Look me up. I'm fairly active out there. But again, I do appreciate the time for you to be here listening to my conversation. And I hope there are a few takeaways over here that you were able to take away and make some smart and informed choices as you move forward in your professional career. Thank you. I will stop sharing and see if there are any questions that I can answer. Either Ying or George, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Uday, for sharing your very interesting and very inspiring journey. It's really cool to see the differences between the software development from a few years ago compared to now. Like, I've never met anyone who's developing for BlackBerry, for example.
That's right. The technology landscape has changed dramatically, and again, BlackBerry used to be the only OS back in the days, and but again, I think they got a little bit cocky in terms of their success, and they saw the likes of Apple and Google build their own platforms and grow, and made some critical mistakes and assumptions, which then essentially made them fall out of favor. So again, the lesson learned over there is that you have to continue to reinvent yourself. You have to continue to reimagine where you are and what the future might be. We've seen plenty of examples, everything from Blockbuster to WeWork in the more recent years, where you are on an idea, you have a good thing going, but you sit on it and you see the competition or some early smaller entities come in and disrupt the market and put you out of business.
That's really interesting, and it's also interesting to hear that back then you have to ship software out. It's really cool. I think I have some 3¼ floppy disk and the other one sitting around somewhere over there. But yeah, we had to burn those disks, and then we had CDs on which we could burn software. But yeah, I remember burning multiple copies and then either taking them along with me or mailing them to the partners who would then install them. So yeah, we've come a long way. The barriers to entry in terms of taking
going from an idea to a product have come down significantly, both in terms of timing, in terms of efficiency, in terms of cost, in terms of reach. And so it's so much easier today to launch an idea, but at the same time, the competition has gone 10x, right? I mean, you can think of any space, and there's already incumbents who are doing really well. So again, there's always two sides to the story, but there's it allows you those opportunities to experiment, to do things, to try your hypotheses over a weekend, right? Over a hackathon, or you could get a couple of people or a couple of pizzas, and before you know it, on a weekend you could launch something, right? So that's exciting.
I think we have a question from George here. So I think this is referring to protecting your team. So he asked if there's any good resources to help to expand strategies with regards to guarding and blocking.
Yeah, I think the resources really over there, it really comes down to, when we think of agile, if you're an agile shop, if you're delivering using agile techniques, then end of day, your best friend is your sprint planning or your PI planning, right? PI is your product increment, right? Having that agenda up front, right? And there are certain ceremonies that happen as part of that, and you bring your customers and stakeholders in. You talk about their wish list, their requirements, and they might have a big grab bag. They might have 10 or 15 things that they come to this planning with. But then, so that's on the demand side. On the supply side is this one team, right? We talk about, a 2-pizza team, right? Which is a set of 5 or 6 engineers, that is the right side of a team. And you say, hey, that is my capacity, right? And we're thinking in terms of 2-week increments. Let's say a sprint is 2 weeks and our PI is 3 sprints. So let's say we're thinking about 3 sprints or 6 weeks. So, hey, customer, hey, partner, what do you want me to do in those 6 weeks, right? What is important to you for us to deliver, right? And these set of 12, 15 things, we don't have the capacity to do that. So let's prioritize these. Let's think about what are the most important experiences or intents that we should work with. And you can think of it from a value point of view, from a risk point of view. Now those 12 things, 2 or 3 might rise to the top. You size them and say, okay, these are 3 things that we are committing to, and the team will deliver, right? And then you stick to that. Next time, if somebody comes to you and pushes you and say, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? I say, hey, well, these are the things we committed to, right? Are these not important enough to you? What do you want me to take out, right? And so you have those trade-offs. You can have those trade-offs, but again, ideally, you should wait till the end of the 6 weeks or maybe end of the sprint and make those changes. The more you can protect your team and stay true to those commitments and wait for those logical milestones or ceremonies before you change course, the better off you are going to be. So I think it comes down to having that confidence and that partnership with your tech teams, and then setting that agenda and setting those norms with your partners upfront and say, hey guys, we agree to this, we're going to stick to this, and tomorrow if you want to change something, let's wait till that logical point comes along.
Oh, that sounds like a really good strategy. And then there's one more question for me, actually. So I was asking if you have any advice for developers who are looking to expand their business knowledge, like if they come from no business background.
So the advice I'd give is don't think of expanding in terms of expanding your business knowledge. Think of expanding your product knowledge, right? And when you think of product, the product mindset is something that really will help you stretch your thinking in terms of the different aspects, whether it's branding, pricing, design, customer, distribution, and those different aspects. And that's what really business is all about. So my advice to developers would be, if you want to get into business, start thinking about maybe some product ideas. Maybe you have a pet product idea. There's some problem or challenge that you see around your home, around your community. Think about solving that. Yeah. Think about rallying some of your friends or colleagues and say, hey, let's start, an evening project or weekend project where we come along and think about how do we solve this, right? And when you start about solving a problem like that, it'll force you to think about, hey, is this a real problem, or am I making this up? And if in order to validate that, you'll have to talk to some of those real people who are facing those problems, right? And that's when you really start pushing the boundaries on business thinking, product thinking, customer first thinking, right? Another way to get into business really is to seek out, to raise your hand in your company and go have the conversation with some of the business people or some of the product people and say, hey, I'm interested over here. Is there a way I can contribute, right? So those opportunities might not come to you, but you will have to probably force yourself in there. You'll have to take that maybe uncomfortable step and go out there and say, hey, I'm interested and I can volunteer on my own time. How can I help? And so those are just a couple of ways, but there's probably other ways. So but again, that intent or that desire has to come from within. You have to step out of your comfort zone, and that's when the real learning and real growth starts to happen.
Okay. So it sounds like a more hands-on learning kind of thing.
Absolutely. And again, you could get on YouTube or Coursera or some of these platforms, and there'll be some courses and classes out there. There's also, a bunch of product leaders, starting with Marty Kagan and a few others, Sachin Reiki, and they have a lot of YouTube videos and books out there that you could be reading in order to understand how product people think. What are some of the foundational elements in terms of thinking like a product person, and that could help you get the theoretical knowledge. But again, you have to get that practical knowledge. You have to. I got that by burning myself from those two early entrepreneurial experiences, right? I spent time, energy, money, sacrificed my family time. But again, yes, I failed, but I learned something very tangible by doing stuff, which I could talk about at interviews, which was compelling.
Interesting. So if there's any more questions from the audience, you can put it in the Q&A box. I think if you go through the general chat, George responded to your questions a bit. So he mentioned that sometimes there's conflict between business and tech team in terms of the scope of delivery, which I find could be true sometimes.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not able to get to that view. So, and I don't want to click something over here that's gonna, totally get me. So, but again, yeah, I mean, that tension will always be there, right? I mean, in my current setup, I'm a platform product leader as opposed to a digital product leader, right? So, I and my teams, we work on backend products, which actually help build the foundation or lay the foundation for front-end products, right? So my customers are internal customers. These might be other platform customers, right? Or these might be a line of businesses. So for example, within Capital One, we have different kinds of card products. We have products for people with high FICO scores. We have, that segment is called the upmarket segment. We have products for people with intermediate or low FICO scores. We call that the Main Street line of business. And each of these line of businesses have their own strategies, and whether in terms of what experiences they want to stand up, what kind of spend and transactions they want to approve, and how they think about the different customers. And as a platform person, it's upon me to understand those strategies and then translate them into requirements or what we call intents for our tech teams to go build. So specifically, my platform teams are responsible for spend approval and decline. So every time you swipe a card or you use a card in an online transaction, the approve or decline decision comes from my platforms. And so it's a very high stake setup, low latency, high performance, high throughput. But again, it's driven by business rules. There are fraud rules, there are credit underwriting rules, there are customer preference rules, and all these rules come from our internal customers. So we understand those policies, those rules, and then we build them and code them into software. And then we have rules, decision engines, and machine learning models that are powering those decisions on a second by second, minute by minute, on a daily basis. So again, there's strong partnerships that we have to build so that we continue to keep the current requirements and experiences healthy while making room for new requirements, growth, and innovation on the platform.
So as long as you both come into like an agreement between expectations, that should be okay. So it seems like there are no more questions from the audience. And so thank you so much, Uday, for your very inspiring talk today. It's really amazing to see how someone can transition from one career to a totally different path. Thank you so much for your time as well, for speaking at GDG Brunei.
Yeah, thank you, Ying, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I wish you the best and your Brunei community the best. And I look forward to connecting again. And thank you, George.
Thank you, George, for waking up so early.
Yeah.